Ho 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 everyone! So I figured to do a review on my Flamberge today. Yep, and I got myself a Ultrasabers Flamberge. It's got itself an emerald driver, and today I was able to figure out how to use that thing. So everything's going pretty well for me today. Figured out how to use my how to take advantage of all the features on my Electrum Sabercraft Aurora with a D3 driver. Software, whatever you want to call it, and I've got my Flamberge all figured out. So I will stop talking in a southern accent right now. Yeah. So this thing's a beast. It's huge. The blade's like a 36-inch blade, and these things are like 5 inches long on the sides. And if you look at my hands are pretty big, but not that big. And this is another saber I got myself used on eBay, and it's a delight. So you can see this really cool pommel. This pommel exudes the Knights of Old, nice long sword type design. It's a good place to grab a hold of this thing, because this is definitely a two-handed sword. It's a sword. It might be a lightsaber, but it's definitely a sword in all the ways that a sword is a sword. So you get your vents there, and got these wonderful little grooves. Yeah, pretty much the same all the way around. We'll go up the handle. Got a nice little backlit switch, and some really cool detail here where the hilt meets the crossguard. This is actually, I think, larger than what Kylo Ren used in his time in the spotlight. Interesting thing about this saber is the blades are held in both on the cross guards and here by 3 blade retention screws, which is absolutely necessary because this thing's so huge. I can imagine with 1 blade retention screw there would be issues with blades flying all over the place. And the other cool thing is this and here, they screw off. You can rotate them and come off, and they'll come off, and you can just remove the whole assemblage, rather than having to deal with the blade retention screws while they're in the hilt. So you can actually, for whatever reason, you can. I mean, obviously, it would need to be that way here, because you can't gain access to all the screws because of these details here. They sort of, as you can see, sort of block you in a little bit, so you'd have to take this off. So I figured they just kind of figured it'd be easier to have all 3 of them come off. Now, as far as the LED driver goes, basically what it allows you to do, as most of you probably already know, is to have color changing ability with the main blade. The side blades are just kind of a fixed LED. I found that you can control the intensity of the red. This has a red LED setup. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I mean, it's a full RGB, but it doesn't. I imagine it probably would work exactly like a full RGB. Now I'm thinking about it. Now the sides are locked in at red, but this blade, being full RGB, could be any color that you want in any mix of a color that you can adjust as either a slow fade in and fade out pulse, or you can set it as kind of a flicker. And you can adjust the RGB values. And I found that with the RGB values, when you're adjusting the flicker rate, it does tend to have a direct effect on the values for the clash. And I'm still kind of figuring that out, because as I changed values of one, it seemed to affect the values of another. But then when you actually clash this thing, it doesn't necessarily look like the pulse color. So it's kind of a weird situation. I'm sure someone out there will be more than happy to explain that to me. But I have this where I like it. It kind of transitions between a deep red and an orange, and I have it set up as more of a flicker rather than a fade in, fade out pulse. But I also kind of set it at such a rate as to not really cause too much of an issue for for the eyes. I mean, it would be enough to make someone with epilepsy freak out. So I kind of wanted to avoid that while having it look visually appealing, and so far it is. But as far as the rest of this thing goes, and it's heavy, but it's also very comfortable. This is a very nice saber overall. You don't want to drop it on the floor, you will damage your floor. So it gives you kind of a nice view of the cross guard. And this one came with a CoverTech wheel. A very well positioned CoverTech wheel. This is not very obtrusive at all. And there's your pommel once again. No in-hilt recharge. That's about the only thing the saber doesn't have is in-hilt recharge. All right, so let me turn it on for you, and you can see. It doesn't really come out that great on camera. It's transitioning from red to orange pretty quickly. Yeah, it looks horrible on camera. And then, of course, you have your lockup. And your clash. Alright, so this came with fonts already installed. And there's a very interesting font in here that I don't particularly like, but I'm keeping just because of its uniqueness. And when I receive sabers and people have taken the effort to install things on it, for some reason I'm a kind of a like pseudo whack job purist, and I kind of like to keep the saber equipped as I receive it. The only sabers I really customize are the ones that come from the factory, and they don't have any, they just have defaults. I'm not a big fan of defaults usually, but when someone's gone through the effort to install fonts onto sabers and customize them, as happens with a lot of the used sabers I buy, part of me wants to kind of preserve that for some bizarre reason. It's just in my nature. So let's go to... So I had it on Black Star, and I tend to like Black Star a lot as my default font. Now, one of the fonts that isn't on here is Ancient Saber. I also really like Ancient Saber, but when I get to it, you'll find out what it's been replaced with. That's the Sith font. There you go.
Confirm.
Okay, so it has a Pikachu font. You can tell by all the electricity and weird Pikachu sounds. So it's not completely useless font. It's actually kind of cool. So I'm keeping it. And let's see.
Episode 1.
So we have episode 1.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Episode 6.
Episode 6. Mute. Obsidian. And back to Black Star.
Confirm.
So that's what we have for fonts. So the only one that's not on here, the only standard font that's not on here is Ancient Saber. Now, I'm not swinging this around too much because it's too big for it. And I don't want to trash the ceiling. So this is a crossguard saber par excellence. Very heavy, but not too bad. You get the gist. All right, so what do I think of this thing? It's a keeper. I'm glad I purchased it. I'm glad I figured out the Emerald driver, and I've been wanting a crossguard saber. Other than, I mean, I had the Kylo Ren Force effects, the original one, not the new Elite one. I don't really have any interest in any more Force effects sabers. But this one's a fine addition to my collection. I'm waiting for it to get a little bit warmer out so I can take this monster outside and really swing it around, because this thing, I mean, the blade just goes on forever, and the hilt goes on forever, and it's so wide that unless you're outside, you're not going to get the full measure of this thing. Crossguard sabers are a little bit challenging to use. If this were the real deal, if this were a real functional lightsaber, I think probably 95% of people that would wield it would probably end up eviscerating themselves within 10 minutes, as the meme goes. Oh, I actually didn't show you really the backlit switch. I love a good backlit switch, and of course this runs off of two lithium-ion batteries. I think they're like 15300. Is that what they're called? They're the little itty bitty ones. There's only two of them, kind of like the size of the exact size of a double A, and you unscrew this thing. The speaker's on the end of a chassis. You pull the whole thing out. On one side, you have your Obsidian V4, V3, V4, whichever one it is, driver. And on the other side, you have your Emerald driver. And each driver has its own port. But I find that for the Emerald driver, you pretty much just connect to the Emerald driver port. And that pretty much gives you access to all of the capabilities of the thing, as far as making adjustments to the color and the sound fonts and anything that you might want to do that's capable of doing. So that is pretty much my Flamberge. And of course, this is not the CE version. This is just the standard version. And there is also another version which has a lot more detail on the hilt, and it's really quite lovely. But this is what was available to me. Interestingly enough, there was 3 Flamberges for sale on eBay. This was by far and away the best of the 3, and the least expensive. And I was able to get kind of a price reduction from the seller. One really has to try to take advantage of the I forget what it's called, make an offer. If you have an option to make an offer and save a little bit of money, I recommend doing it. Usually I go kind of low, and then usually the seller will meet you kind of at a reasonable halfway point. A little bit higher, a little bit lower sometimes, but the thing is like, if you have an option to save like 20, 30, in this instance, I end up saving probably like about $250 just by buying it used, and it's in mint condition. Even the blades were minty. I have no complaints about this thing. I did have an issue. My personal laptop was not able to. The graphic card was not able to make the Ultrasaber software with the Emerald driver function properly. I had the wrong graphics driver, so I ended up using one of my mother's computer, which was fully capable of doing what it needed to do. So I'm going to customize this one. I don't know if I'm going to be customizing the Emerald driver on my Ezra Mantis, because I think I'm going to be getting a new speaker for that one before I review it. So you probably won't see a review on that one for quite some time, because I'm lazy, and I'm kind of sort of backing off spending money as much as possible. Anyway, so yeah, there we go. That's the Ultrasabers standard Emerald driver Flamberge. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. It's almost over. Well, it's almost over for me. Yeah, it's over for me. Not over. I don't mean it's like over for me. I mean this day is over. You know what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I get confused sometimes. So yeah. Oh, that's a good shot. Look at that. Look at that. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.